it's a pretty famous story now. I'm from New Orleans, and I was I was in my fifth grade. I was in fifth grade, and I was at my favorite part of the day, which was recess. And there was a story going around, that we were going to have a pop quiz, and we had never had pop quizzes before, so I didn't believe it. And I was always pretty popular. I don't know why, but I was pretty popular. So, once I said, ain't gonna be no pop quiz, we all right. And they basically believed me. Of course, we got up to our class and there was a pop quiz. But the way it went was there were about 30 kids, or 31 kids in the classroom. And how everything's set up is basically like this. And what the teacher did was he'd start from the front and he'd ask you one question. If you got it right, you passed. If you got it wrong, you failed. As he went on asking questions, I realized that there were only about 6 to 8 questions that he asked. So if I remembered the answers, then I'd pass. It'd be great. And well, just a little back, let me back up a little bit. When I was in school, I always sat in the middle because my theory was if you sat in the front, the teacher thought you knew everything. And if you sat in the back, the teacher thought you didn't know anything. But if you sat in the middle, you sort of disappeared. So that's where I sat, I was in the middle. And so I had a few revelations, of questions, maybe, 2. And I wasn't doing very good for an average as far as getting it right. So I looked out the window as I often did, and I looked at the sky and said, God, if you get me out of this, I'll do anything. And about 2 minutes later, the principal came on the loudspeaker and she said, anyone interested in joining the band, report to the band room immediately. And of course I raised my hand, and everybody else did too. He actually picked me and it was really cool. And as funny as that story is, it's the absolute truth, I kid you not. And it's amazing, And so we run into the band room, we're sighing, we're like, oh boy, that was close, all this other stuff. And we get to the band room, which is a huge room compared to how the classrooms were. And there were all these beautiful pictures of instruments just lined up on the top of the wall. And the thing that caught my eye was the flute. Sleek, silver, beautiful. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play the flute. Well, when I got to the band room, I sat in the middle again because that was my theory. Of course, I sat in the middle of the girls. The girls sat in the front and the guys sat in the back because that's how you just did things. But there were about, a few girls in front of me, and they liked the flute too. So when the band director asked, what do you want to play? Flute, 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 flute. Well, by the time he got to me, I was like, that's a common instrument. I don't want to play that anymore. So the clarinet was next, and there it was. I said, I'm going to play the clarinet. And about 5 other girls after me said clarinet, but I was the first, so it was okay. And it was really cool because, when you think about it, flutes are awesome. But, you can do a lot of things on a clarinet that you can't do on a flute, and one of them is volume. And it's just, point that thing to the sky and just, it's just really cool. I can play flute, not as well as I play the clarinet, but, so that love is still there, but, I'm good, So that's how I started playing clarinet, and I was good, I was okay at a lot of things. I was one of those students, and now that my child has graduated high school, I can say this. But, I wasn't a studious kind of student, I was one of those people who, 85, yes, I'm good, you know what I mean? So, and I could probably make it a 95 or, 100 or something like that, but why? So anyway, that was that. I was good at the clarinet. I picked it up really quickly, and it felt good. It just, it was the bomb. So I kept going, and I actually practiced, the clarinet. It was really cool. And at that point, I was in 6th grade, and I was in elementary school. 6th grade was the last class. Before you go to junior high school. So I was at Big Fish in that little bitty pond, and I felt wonderful. And I went to junior high school, and things changed. They really changed. I mean, the kids were bigger, and they had been playing longer, and it just wasn't as much fun. I had a band class with older kids, and I was still all right, but I didn't think I was that great. And then there was a lot of reading, and reading wasn't really my thing. So I went to class and kind of lost interest, and I sat in the middle anyways. I sort of disappeared anyway, so it was good. But I had a crush on the drum major. His name is Troy. And I'm telling you, he had a halo or something. It's just but I sort of, the band director, I didn't disappear from him. His name is Mr. Richardson, and he's very famous in New Orleans for being, hardcore band director who was responsible for a lot of great future musicians. And he just targeted me, and that's how it went, that whole first part of the year. And I didn't practice, I didn't worry about anything, so I just go to band class and just sit there. And he got tired of that, so every time they would do something, or have a problem with a phrase, he said, hold on, let Doreen play it for you. And everybody knew I couldn't play it, so it was cool. That kind of thing, you're fired now, right? But one day, Troy was in the band room, and when I walked in that day, I just knew it. I said, this isn't gonna go well. This isn't gonna go well. But I just kept hope, and and I sat down, and I said, well, whatever it is, I'm gonna be able to play it, no problem. And it's too late to make this long story short, but what happened was, we were almost finished the classroom time, and I was like, thank you. And they had issues with something, and Mr. Richardson said, hold on, let's let Doreen play it for us. Well, this time, serious business. I mean, I'm not gonna embarrass myself in front of Troy, Well, I looked at it, just tried to play it. Did not work at all. It was horrible. And they started laughing, which they often did anyway. And it didn't bother me until I turned over to the side and Troy was laughing too. Crush ended. So it was over at that point. But that was a turning point for me because it crushed me. I was just so upset, and I went home. I actually took the workbook home this time, and I just started playing from the beginning of the book, and I finished the whole book that evening. And as bad as I felt with Troy laughing at me, I felt even worse when I finished the book because I was like, this is really nothing. I could do this. What was I doing? It didn't even have to happen that way. But it's the journey, right? Whatever you do, it's the journey that makes whatever you're doing now what it is. And from that point on, there was no more poke fun at Doreen or anything else like that. It was like, and Mr. Richardson didn't care. He's like, well, let's let Doreen play it for us. And I was ready to, I was like, yeah, all right. So I played it, and it was great. It was absolutely fabulous. And he said, Doreen, Then I was a teacher's pet. And, you know, not too much changed as far as let's let Doreen play it for you, but this time it was really a pretty good example. So, and the clarinet just took me everywhere. You know, wherever the clarinet went, that's where I followed. So I went to that junior high school because it was in my district, of course, but they had like the best band, so I was going to go there anyway. And then the senior high school did the same thing. However the band was, that's where I was going. College, same thing, you know, so that's how I got here. You know, just clarinet, it leads.
That's awesome. Awesome. Let's see, you wanna let's play something, and then we'll get into your call.
We always start with a spiritual, and this will be no exception. Oh, well, I guess I could.
What do you need?
I'll stand.
The mic stand?
Yeah. Okay. It's on you.
Great stuff, Miss Doreen. Great stuff. Great stuff. So the story for how you went from a classically trained clarinetist at Loyola and then ultimately up at the Hart School in Connecticut. Where did the transition happen for you between the classical world and the classical world of clarinet into the world where you currently live and have for several years now in the jazz idiom?
It's a guy again. So I went to this performing arts school called NOCA, and she did too, actually. And there I was a classical musician. I mean, that's how you do, right? You go into school and you learn Sousa marches, and then you have the big concert at the end of each year, and you do these songs. I think we did like Superman theme one year and King Kong theme another year. So you do those kind of things, and so that's what makes you a classically trained musician. Well, when I got to NOCA, it sort of amped up, and you had to do a lot of reading and a lot of practicing and a lot of competitions and stuff like that, and it was really cool. And Ellis Marcellus was one of the teachers. Now, he didn't teach me clarinet. He actually was my ear training teacher. And wow, you think of these things, and there are a lot of similarities, because he used to make an example of me too. But anyway, I was so intimidated by him all the time, and even later on when, he would come to like a performance or something like that, and, because I did an interview and I started talking about how I was so intimidated by him and everything, and he told me, he said, "You gotta stop that." I'm like, that's not gonna stop me from being intimidated by you. You can't say things like that, like, you gotta stop that. And, adds it on. But anyway, I used to practice in the janitor's closet. I taught the janitor into moving his stuff out so that I could have a place to practice. And it was an old elementary school, so nobody really cared. But whatever you were doing, whenever you entered that building, if I was practicing, you heard me, okay? And that wasn't on purpose, it's just I needed a place to practice. But anyway, Mr. Marcellus heard me, and he came to the room, And he told me, he said, you're a really good clarinet player. You ought to look into playing some jazz. And I was like, okay. And he said, you have to listen to some people and see what you think. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'm in New Orleans and he's talking about jazz, so naturally when I listen to people like Pete Fountain and George Lewis and Benny Goodman, that kind of stuff. And these guys are really, really good, but it's not my thing, And so when I came back, when we met again, he asked me, he said, what I thought. And I was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not my thing. And he was like, okay. Now, I didn't realize at that time that Ellis Marsalis was a clarinet player before he was the famous Ellis Marsalis on keyboards, So the man really knew what he was talking about. But, I was a teenager. I knew everything. But anyway, that's how it went. Well, I graduated from NOCA. Now I went to Loyola, and I was playing classical music. I was in a concert band, and there was this gorgeous tuba player. I mean, just gorgeous. Oh my goodness gracious. And he was in the concert band. And the only way to get up to the concert band was to go up to these attic stairs, because it was in the attic. So, wherever you went in the building, you wound up at these attic stairs to get to that final floor. And my friend and I, we used to get there early just so we could watch him walk up the stairs. But anyway, it's the truth. I'm so serious. I mean, it's amazing how much of my life is funny. It's amazing. Anyway, he used to look at me from the tuba section, and I always looked at him from the clarinet section. But when he looked at me, I turned my head. And when I saw he wasn't looking at me anymore, I'd look at him again. So he thought I was stuck up. Because, he could never get my attention. But our mutual friend, who had a boyfriend at that time, she, had lunch with both of us. And, it was just, it was like magic. It was fairy tale crazy stuff, But I kid you not, he had a jazz band, and the clarinet player was really, acting a butt. And, he told me, he said, almost verbatim what Ellis Marsalis said. He said, you're a really good clarinet player. You ought to try playing some jazz. And when Mr. Marsalis said it, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. But when he said it, I was like, okay. That's it. And that's what he would do. He would spend time, and we'd play together, and we'd play these songs, and he was very patient, and a very good teacher. And whatever you like about my clarinet playing and all that other stuff, it's God and Lawrence, and that's the honest to goodness truth.
Well, we are forever indebted to you, Lawrence, for everything that you did. And
notice I'm not sharing the mic.
I did it. I didn't have nothing to do with it. And when I'm there.
But like any great relationship, you're there to support one another, and I just seen you the last several days together. It's an inspiration. So thank you. Care to play another tune for us? Sure. Awesome.
I want the mic first. Okay. I got this book. It was a Dixieland fake book. Now, Doreen didn't know anything about jazz, but she could read anything. And I had a book with jazz tunes in it for her to read. So I gave her the book, and she started reading the songs, and her dad called out every song that she was playing. Huh? You remember that? That's what I wanted to say.
Well, my dad wasn't a musician, but he was a member of a social aid and pleasure club. And what they do is they dance in front of the bands during the parades. So that's why he knew so many of the songs, because, you know, he had danced to so many of them. But yeah, when I was much younger, I thought my dad knew everything. There was nothing my dad didn't know, couldn't do, or whatever. Matter of fact, when I first got the clarinet, I asked my dad to help me put it together and, you know, do everything, because he knew everything. And it's amazing, you know, how when I was a kid, he knew everything. And then when I got to be a teenager, he knew absolutely nothing. But then when I got in my 20s, he was smart again. So I'm looking for that. Waiting for that. She said, someone take the mic. Because I don't like that much. Well, on the fact that she got some data, when she left the town, since she came, why it's a shame. All she was around, all the fellas that she can't get, all the fellas that she ain't met. Well, don't fling her and don't fling her, so ain't go the ground.
Does anyone else have this going through your brain while you're sitting there like, this is actually happening right now? You know, I'm sitting here listening to this amazing trio play. It's just going through my brain. When I was on the podium earlier, like if you asked the band, like I was just grinning, like this is happening, like she's doing this. It was amazing, amazing. You continue to amaze me and inspire all of us. Can you talk to us, how many of you have seen her live, the trio live in New Orleans? The corner of Royal and St. Peter. Now, in the French Quarter, as it's been dubbed the Times Square of the French Quarter. Can you talk to us how the corner of Royal and St. Peter became your home for your family as street performers?
I mean, we moved around a bit. We actually started in Jackson Square, but yeah, Royal and St. Peter became this place we could play. It was right in front of the Rouse's grocery store, and once they enjoyed the way we played, it was a very close, clean bathroom. So we went from Jackson Square to St. Peter and Royal, and then we moved up Royal Street to what is now the courthouse, but was a rundown wildlife and fishery building. And we played there for a while, and then we went back to Jackson Square, and then we wound up back on Royal and St. Peter. And yeah, we've been there for a while, and you know, people look for us right there. It's amazing. And sometimes when we make our way out there are already people waiting. It's so crazy, man. It's like, wow, it's so cool. But yeah, it's a safe place. I mean, it's the French Quarter, you know, and you don't. I mean, and we got buckets out, and we're making cash money, you know, and the criminal element can see that. So you know, you don't want to have to go 3 blocks to the bathroom, or you know, so many blocks to get something to drink, you know, or something like that. So I mean, it was. You know, it was God's way of putting us in a very safe place so that we could do our thing and not be subject to, you know, a lot of bad things. And a lot of times we go out there with the kids, you know, we'd have Doreen and, you know, her little cousins or, you know, something like that. And, you know, I mean, you know, if you're out there with me, I don't care. You can bring me your kid, all right? And I'm telling you, if they're out there, they're not going to be sitting. I'm going to put something in their hands, a drumstick or, you know, some kind of instrument, a CD. Yeah, you're right. A CD. We're going to be selling those later too, by the way. I train them well. But yeah, and it's a very and then of course the people in the grocery store, they're like family, to us. So it's really cool. We go out there as a family, and we're surrounded by family, and it's really a nice place to be. And honestly is. Now that we're older, we're only out there early in the mornings, because it's summertime now. We started like 9:30 in the morning. We finished somewhere around 12:30 or 1, because it's just hot, and we've been doing this for a long time, and after a while you learn how to do a whole lot in less time. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. First time I heard that Times Square to French Quarter was that CBS Sunday morning thing. Yeah, I didn't even know. A lot of things you don't know about yourself until you read. Not all of it's true, either. I'm just saying. But yeah, so that's where we are, and that's where we've been for a long time now, because it's a very comfortable place for us, and people look for us now there, so it works.
Can you, because it was funny at lunch today, speaking of not knowing all the things about yourself, the tour guide that was, you tell the very Reader's Digest version of the story is really funny.
Oh, well, yeah, we were out playing, and we stopped in between songs, and this tour came by, and the guy was telling people all kinds of stuff about us, and one of the things he said was, Doreen used to play on this very corner with her parents, and like the whole band went, what? And so, I was like, no. And he said, yes. I'm like, no. And he said, yes again. I'm like, do you know who you're talking to? But yeah, so it's a whole bunch of things about me I didn't know.
That's awesome. Can you play us another tune, Mike? Sure. Awesome.
My boss. I had planned a song, but the boss says, no, this would be better. And then the alpha says, she's right. So we're going to do, what? Okay. I'll change it or something. I don't know. We're going to do just a really quick explanation of the jazz funeral, okay? Because you've heard the Closer Walk with Thee, today and everything. And we're going to do, I might do that. I might do a different song, but it's all about the jazz funeral in New Orleans. Now, as you know, in New Orleans, we do everything to music, including burials. Now, in order to have a successful, top of the line jazz funeral, you need a deceased. But once you get past that deceased part, you need plenty of spectators like yourselves, a brass band about twice the size of this one, and a bereaved family. Now, the jazz funeral officially begins when the band captain sees the casket coming out of the church or funeral home wherever the services are being held. When he sees this, he signals the band to play what is called a dirge. Translation of a dirge, a slow, tear-jerking song. And it's always a spiritual. Now, normally for this, we would play Just a Closer Walk with Thee. I guess we're going to do that again. You'll hear it again. So, now this is what it looks like in the middle of the street. You have the funeral director's car, the band, the hearse, the family cars, and spectators all around. Now, when Yeah, everybody's standing around outside of this building, a funeral home or church where the services are being held. And when the doors open to this building, then the music starts, the band starts to play this slow dirge. And they will stand in place and play that slow dirge as the pallbearers bring the casket out of the building. And they'll play that song standing in place until until the casket is loaded into the hearse and everybody is in their respective places. Once that happens, it becomes a procession. And the band does this slow somber march, playing that song from side to side that looks like this. Now this is called the first line. And the first line is for the bereaved family to express their grief at the loss of their loved one. Now this goes on for about 5 or 6 blocks, depending of course on the popularity of the deceased. See, if the deceased was a very popular person, then more spectators are turning out. So they'll elongate the procession just a little bit so everybody can get an eye and an earful. But however long that procession is, there's a point of separation. And at that point of separation, the band splits into two, forming sort of a gateway, half on one side of the street and half on the other side of the street, for the hearse and the rest of the family cars to pass through. Now, once the last family car passes the trumpet player, he gives off a call like this. Hey! And that is what the spectators do. And ladies and gentlemen, you are the spectators. Everybody got the lyrics? All right, let's try. Hey! Now, I'll tell you why that was just okay. First of all, there are a bunch of y'all in here. But that hey signifies that the time for bereavement is over. And it's now time for you to rejoice because that loved one has gone on to a better place. Or a warmer place, depending on what kind of person you are. So when you hear that call, you can't just say, hey. When you hear that call, you gotta say, hey! Because with that call, you're waking the dead. You're changing the mood from sad to happy. You're changing the situation from respectful to let's partay. So let's try it again. Hey! Oh yeah. Now, with that, the hearse and the family cars go one way, and the band and the spectators are left in the middle of the street, about to go the other way. And that is gonna start the second line. And that's when the music changes from sad to happy. And we're gonna do like the Joe Avery Blues, which is pretty famous for that second line thing. Now, when the second line starts, it's all joy. All joy, all right? But before we dance and party in the streets, we have to pay our respects to the deceased. And we do that with the first line. And in this case, it's entitled, Just a Closer Walk with Thee. We'll do Amazing Grace. Since you heard Closer Walk already. Just thought I'd cut it short since we got things to do. So now, the hearse and the family cars, they're gone, headed to the cemetery. What's left is the band and the spectators in the middle of the street. And everybody's quiet and respectful, but anxious, ready to partake. But no one wants to be the first to yell and scream in the middle of a funeral. That's why you got the trumpet player. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
Happens more than once. Here we go. Come on and do that second line. We'll do it final time. Let's do that second line. We're gonna shake our bodies all night long. Now, second lines last for hours on end. And you're probably wondering to yourself, how in the world does a band get people to yell and scream and dance in the middle of the street in all that heat? Well, in New Orleans, whenever we hear, we say, hey, it doesn't matter what we're doing. We could be having breakfast in the morning, hey, cereal everywhere. We could be sleeping, hey, eating your babies. So we're gonna do that, all right? When you hear it, remember, you gotta wake the dead, all right? If you do it really well, we'll give you something special at the end.
some good things. Several of you have asked me, and I told that I was going to tell the story about how Doreen ended up here in San Antonio with us in the Cedar Park Winds. Some very dear friends of mine, Audra and Albert, was in the back of the second, Albert Bella, band director at Oak Ridge High School. Their special place is New Orleans, it always has been, and they chose to be married there this past year in New Orleans. And I was following the Facebook and looking at all this stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, Doreen is played at their wedding? So I immediately texted Albert, because I, as probably all of you, fangirling on YouTube for years watching her play. And I was like, Albert, how did y'all do that? What did you do? He's like, just reach out to her. Just reach out to her. She's the greatest human on the planet. And seriously, I reached out. I was like, okay, well, here goes nothing. And the rest is history. She said yes, and she's here with us today. So. We're going to wrap this up. One very just quick question, and then we'll wrap up with some music and get on out the door. Any pieces of advice, Ms. Doreen, for this is a room full of music educators. They're about to start their year again with students ages 6 through 12 and everything in between. And we have some college professors here as well, all the way to adults. Do you have any advice, or what would you say to the educators in the room?
I say, make it fun, you know, and don't be so lightweight, you know, don't be so easy on them when they don't do what they're supposed to do. Because for me, you know, I was allowed to chill out, you know, and that's what I did because I was a kid, you know, and it's not always what you do that is this life-changing thing, but I could tell you there have been so many people in my life who just nonchalantly said something, just something. And that, I mean, they were trying to help me out, you know, so it meant something to them, but just nonchalantly they told me something. But for me, it stuck. It's just there. And it's what I refer to, you know. I mean, I remember one time my stepmother told me, she said, well, I had just gone to college away from home. And I was moving into my own apartment, and I didn't want to ask for stuff. You know, I was a poor college student, I ain't no money. So I was sleeping on the floor and everything, and you know, she went in her basement and she said, here's a bed, here's this, here's that. And I was like, no, I'm good. And she said, look, this is my gift to you. Don't block my blessing, all right? You have to learn how to accept. You can't just be a giver all the time. And for her, it was just something she said that she meant, you know, at that time. But for me, every single time I give or receive, I think of that. You know, and a lot of times when I receive, because most of the time, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm good, and I think about what she said. And, you know, so, and that's just one thing. I mean, you know, but I'd say make it fun and, you know, pay attention to the kid in the middle too, you know, because they're all there because, I mean, it's an elective, you know what I mean? You don't have to take band, you know what I mean? So you're there, something sparks you, and, you know, you want to do something. And, you know, just as long as it's, you know, educational, they're going to learn something. But when it's fun too, it's special, you know, it keeps them coming back, you know, it's like giving them candy or something. Don't give them candy. I'm just saying, you know, it's like that, you know, and that's how it was for me. And when I teach, because, you know, we do this in a lot of places, from kindergartners, you know, preschoolers to the elderly, you know, and it's, as long as you gotta captivate them, you know, because when you're sitting there trying to teach these kids things, you're performing. I mean, you just are, and you want to put on a great show. So that's what you got to think about every single time you walk into your classroom or whatever, or you get this little kid that's not really doing what they're capable of doing. You know, it takes a lot of patience. That's why I'm not what you guys are. But, yeah, it's and you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing anyway. Just make sure, you try to put some fun into it, a fun element into it too. And you don't know, you might have an idea of how important you are to these people you stand in front of on a regular basis. But however important you think you are, you're even more than that, because you're on a pedestal. They're looking to you for advice. They're looking to you for the dream. They're looking to you for everything. So, just take care of them and have fun, and make sure they have fun too.
Pay attention to the kid in the middle. I like that. What a great quote. Would you mind taking us out with the Little Saints?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Doreen is the most awesomest wife in the universe.
I give what I get. And before we leave, I want to introduce the band once more, because you haven't heard her voice. I'm hearing everything back here.
Hi, y'all. I'm their daughter, as you can tell. That's it.
Doreen has been playing with us since she was 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she's gone from not liking it to liking it a little to not liking it again. But I think she does enjoy, doing this, because she's very good at it. And I mean, when you're 19 and the world's in front of you, you want to explore. You want to do as much as you can. You want to check out things. And I'd rather her check out things now than when she's 30. So she delights us by playing with us when she feels like it. And we love it. So, but she's traveled the world. She's done a lot as a very young girl. She played with Beyonce. Goodness gracious. So, yeah, she could try something else. So here we go, When the Saints Go Marching In. One of my favorite songs in the whole wide world. And I was telling Jeremy, there's this postcard joke, where it says, request $1, Saints Go Marching In, $10. But I never felt that way about this song. I absolutely love this song, and I love doing it. And here we go, When the Saints Go Marching In. And thank y'all so very much. We're going to be at the Hal Leonard booth, and we'll have some CDs available and some postcards, and I'll sign some stuff. And thank you guys so very much for your participation, for being here, for your applause, for laughing at my jokes. And, what a wonderful experience. Y'all enjoy yourselves, have a great time, and thanks again, we really appreciate it. Lawrence Ketchens, Doreen Ketchens, Doreen, all the best. I forgot, Dr. Lawrence Ketchens, and Dr. Doreen. When the saints go marching in, well, when the saints go marching in, said I want to so good in that number. When the saints go, my heart in the head to a soul. When the saints go walking, when the saints go walking, said I'm gonna do in that number S&P. When the saints go marching on the drum.